Welcome to Just Say It. Learn real English through conversations and practice. Easy English, real conversations, practice and repeat. Just say it.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Just Say It, episode 11. We're going to dream big today. I'm your host, and I'll be talking about our hopes and future plans. Today, we'll use our imagination to talk about things like, one day I want to. I wish I could, and even if I had a superpower. So listen, repeat, and let's have fun learning English together. Okay, everyone, are you ready to truly use your imagination today? We're going to explore what happens when we dream big because, well, it's not just a fun concept. It's actually a fundamental force in how we learn, how we grow, and how we pursue our deepest aspirations. We've gathered some really fascinating material today that sheds light on this. Everything from the crucial power of imagination in education, which is often overlooked, to the intricate neuroscience of how our brains actually pursue goals, and even, well, a truly wild collection of imagined superpowers.
Yeah, what's truly fascinating here is how universal this act of imagining really is, and how deeply it's connected to our inherent human ability to learn, to adapt, and ultimately to achieve. Our discussion today will unpack how imagination functions not as some kind of luxury, but actually as a fundamental tool for learning. Then we'll delve into how our brains are meticulously wired for setting and pursuing these big, ambitious goals. And finally, we'll ignite our imaginations with some truly wild ideas about superpowers, which really reveals how far our minds can stretch. It's a journey that shows the profound links between our inner mental landscapes and our tangible real-world aspirations.
Okay, let's unpack this idea of imagination right from the start. Because our sources, specifically this insightful paper called Engaging Students' Imaginations in Second Language Learning, tell us something quite surprising. Imagination is rarely acknowledged as one of the main workhorses of learning. We often think learning is about, effortful memorization, logical deduction, rigorous analysis. But it's less common to explicitly think of it as something that fundamentally requires us to imagine.
Right. And if we connect this to the broader educational landscape, the authors Gillian Judson and Kieran Egan, they highlight the clear and actually detrimental impacts of disregarding imagination in education. They argue that when imagination is sidelined, learning becomes significantly less effective. It often transforms the whole schooling experience into something far more tedious than it really needs to be. Which raises an important question for all of us, I think. Have you ever felt that learning a new skill or understanding something complex felt like an absolute chore? Just a tedious task you had to get through. Perhaps, as this research suggests, imagination was the crucial missing ingredient, that spark that could have transformed the experience.
So, what does this all mean for us? Whether we're learning a language like English or tackling any complex knowledge. The paper outlines what they call a somewhat new way of thinking about education. It focuses on cognitive tools or learning toolkits. These aren't just abstract ideas. Think of them as the fundamental mental gears and levers our brains naturally use. Everything from our raw senses to our capacity for humor, storytelling, even abstract thought. The insight here is that when these tools, which inherently link emotion and imagination with knowledge, are centrally employed in planning, especially in educational settings, they can make learning not just enjoyable, but truly engaging and deeply meaningful, moving beyond just surface-level understanding.
Historically, it's true. Many educators viewed imagination as, well, an educational frill. Something nice to have, maybe a creative outlet to indulge in after the hard work of learning was done. The conventional wisdom often treated it as optional, a pleasant distraction. But this research powerfully argues that imagination isn't just a trick or some superficial hook for interest. It's fundamental. A routine element that should be central to all aspects of learning planning. It's a core part of how our minds naturally process, organize, and integrate new information. It's essential for real understanding.
The article gives us a fantastic way to understand this shift by describing 3 types of teachers. First, imagine a brand new teacher, fresh out of her program. She's got this shiny, fully equipped pedagogical toolkit, games for everything, vibrant images, compelling stories, catchy songs, even raps, all designed to make learning fun, teach vocabulary, explain verbs, aid memorization. Her hope is that all these dynamic activities will engage her students' imaginations, make it accessible and enjoyable. It's a very enthusiastic approach.
Right. Now consider the seasoned second language teacher. They too have a similar array of tools, maybe games for every unit, pictures of different countries, music from the target language culture, film clips connecting the classroom to the real world. This teacher might even throw out a classic joke like, how many eggs does Johnny eat in the morning? Just one, un ouf, which is of course a pun on the French un ouf, sounding like enough. Their tools are maybe worn, scratched, even dented from years of use. but they still work. They aid memorization, make learning palatable, and the students generally enjoy it, find it manageable.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, where the paper introduces a truly revolutionary concept. The third kind of teacher is trained specifically in imaginative second language instruction. Now, she might use many of the same tools, games, images, stories, but her understanding is different. She sees these tools as features of her students' thinking. She recognizes they aren't just external aids, but catalysts. They activate the internal cognitive processes students already possess. And she has many other tools, plus thorough training in using them, so she can go much deeper. Her classroom uses story structure, narrative understanding, personalizing objects, metaphor, image creation, abstract binary oppositions, games, drama, rhyme, rhythm, pattern, extremes of experience, a sense of wonder, a sense of mystery, all to make language acquisition profoundly meaningful.
Exactly. And this distinction is crucial because it moves way beyond just superficial fun. It's about activating the powerful cognitive tools that students already develop naturally as they grow up, often unconsciously. The paper gives this vivid example, teaching a verb tense, the French passé composé, by turning it into a magic spell. Imagine inviting your students, metaphorically, through this creaking door of a dilapidated shed deep in some ancient forest. Inside, shelves with rusted tins, murky glass jars, and in a dim corner, a grisly old woman, cloaked, rocking slowly. You describe her face, lined, covered with moles, maybe repulsive but intriguing. And you explain, this figure holds the magic spells needed to move through time. For the brave, she provides a spell for the past. Throw 3 items into a bubbling cauldron, a subject, then avoir or être, and a verb in past form. This spell, you reveal, lets one express the past to, in effect, move in time.
Wow. So instead of just rote memorization of grammar rules, you're creating this immersive, almost unsettling sense of wonder around it, making it feel like an astonishing human achievement, right? Like a Harry Potter storyline for grammar. That leaves students feeling intrigued, maybe even a bit spooked by the power of the tense itself, not just focusing on routine translation or dry mechanics. What stands out to you most about that example? It really paints a picture.
That's a great question. For me, the most powerful thing is how the imaginative teacher doesn't just present information, they frame it. They put it inside a larger, more compelling narrative, tapping directly into universal human things like mystery, wonder, even a bit of fear. This makes the knowledge stick, not just because it's novel or fun, but because it's deeply memorable, emotionally resonant. It taps into that human desire for story and meaning. It activates multiple cognitive tools at once, making the learning multi-layered,
That idea of linking learning to something profound, even mysterious.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It reminds me of how human thought itself has evolved and how our approach to education has shifted over time. This source touches on 3 major historical ideas about education that still resonate. The first implicitly emphasizes inner understanding. Drawing from the Socratic tradition, right? Questioning to uncover truths already within us.
Yes, exactly. And then there's Plato. He had a rather critical view of conventionally socialized citizens. He believed their everyday beliefs were often just a collection of confusions, illusions, stereotypes, prejudices, and dogmas. Kind of contemptible because they didn't hold up scrutiny. For Plato, education was about seeking absolute truth about reality. He saw the mind as being shaped by disciplined knowledge. So rigorous academic pursuit was key, to turn the mind away from what's merely fashionable towards what is true, good, and beautiful. An intellectual climb, basically. And then we have Jean-Jacques Rousseau. He agreed with Plato that early socialization could teach nonsense, hard to shake off later, but he strongly disagreed that minds were primarily shaped by accumulated knowledge. Rousseau argued the mind has an internal, spontaneous, natural developmental process, like a seed unfolding. So proper education should facilitate this fullest development of inherent potential, let it unfold naturally. This became the anchor for progressivism in education, focusing on the child's natural growth.
Which brings us to the modern context. How do these deep historical ideas actually impact us now? What's fascinating is that pretty much all modern conceptions of education are a blend of these 3. Nobody subscribes exclusively to one. We all believe in each to some degree, but the balance differs dramatically. More radical views might mix a lot of Rousseau with a bit of socializing, very little Plato. Conservative approaches often stir in more Plato and socializing, less Rousseau. The paper even suggests the average politician often emphasizes socializing heavily, making sure citizens fit societal norms light on Rousseau, maybe a sprinkle of Plato. This constant interplay shapes how we think about what and how we should learn. It influences everything.
So bringing it back to cognitive tools, what does a cognitive tool actually look like in this context? The paper gives us another incredible thought experiment to illustrate this. Imagine yourself on the plains of Africa 75,000 years ago. It's hot. You find a tribe, and you discover, astonishingly, that the past tense wasn't just there. It was invented by twin daughters in this tribe, and their father took the credit. Now, these ingenious daughters are planning a launch of the subjunctive mood next week.
Yeah. What's truly fascinating there is the core idea. Complex features of our language, like the past tense or subjunctive, weren't just discovered. They were invented. Humans created them to enhance our ability to make sense of experience, structure thought, articulate ideas with more clarity and nuance. When we learn a language, we're literally picking up endless tools of this kind. They become our tools for thinking, learning, communicating. This scenario illuminates Lev Vygotsky's idea of development as acquiring cognitive tools through social interaction and culture. And the theory of imaginative education aims to maximize the array of these tools we pick up. Give us the richest possible mental toolkit.
Okay, let's unpack this toolkit further. Starting with the body's toolkit. This is described as the very first, most fundamental set of tools we have.
Absolutely. The inescapable foundations are our senses. Sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, stimulated from the start. Babies delight in games combining multiple senses like water play plops, clicks, squeaks, combining sight, touch, hearing. Our senses are necessary for initial understanding, letting us perceive a certain range of phenomena. But beyond just perception, a central, often overlooked feature is its inherent emotional nature. Emotions, delight, distress, fear persist as basic orienters and organizers of our cognition throughout life. They form the underlying matrix shaping our responses, even rationality itself. Cognition is never purely cold. It's always oriented and shaped by the emotions of the body.
That's a powerful point. Our emotions literally shape our thinking. How we feel about something matters as much as what we perceive. What else is in the body's toolkit?
Well, consider pattern and musicality. Stephen Mithen's book, The Singing Neanderthals, suggests we are profoundly musical animals, a central feature from early in our evolution. From infancy, we instinctively look for meaning in patterns, visual, auditory, tactile. Even when things seem random to adults, we construct uniquely human meaning from these regularities our senses deliver. Crucial for language learning, making sense of the world. Another prominent component, often underestimated, is humor. Often neglected by educators, but its presence in our earliest interactions, tongue-sticking, tickling, peekaboo, suggests profound importance. Humor is often based on incongruity, something unexpected, out of place. Dealing pleasurably with incongruity contributes significantly to flexibility of mind, imaginative and creative thinking. It's far from a casual frill.
Moving to the toolkit of oral language. Once we're fluent speakers, we get another incredibly powerful set of tools for sense-making. And these stick with us, right? Not just for kids.
Indeed. Jokes, for instance. They evolve from early bodily games and humor. Physical fun like peekaboo transforms into linguistic fun like riddles and puns. Take the example, maybe you know when cooks are mean when they beats eggs and whipped cream. Jokes like these rely on incongruity. More importantly, they make features of language visible. You have to recognize whipping and beating mean something different in the kitchen context versus a social one. This develops metacognition of language, thinking about how language works. Crucial for flexible, creative use. Images are also immensely enriched by language. We seem unable to not form mental images when we hear things described. Stories, novels, news reports rely heavily on our ability to form vivid mental images. This ability is uniquely powerful, clearly connected with imagination. Lets us step into narratives, visualize concepts.
Finally, the toolkit of literacy. What profound changes and new abilities does becoming fluently literate add? This is where the world really opens up, isn't it?
Literacy delivers a truly new kind of conception of reality, which generates new cognitive tools. One is exploring the extremes of reality, the strange, bizarre, wonderful. It's no coincidence the Guinness Book of Records is popular with newly literate kids, or papers like the National Enquirer sell well. Contrary to common teaching folklore, start with the immediate and relevant. It's actually the exotic, the limits of reality, extremes of experience that most engage interest. Think longest fingernails ever, not just the local neighborhood structure. This hunger for the extreme pushes imagination.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. The paper also mentions associating with the heroic. When reality, expanded by literacy, becomes overwhelmingly vast, maybe threatening, we instinctively relieve those threats by associating with figures who seem able to overcome them. It's not just admiring fame, it's connecting with embodiments of qualities that transcend the everyday. Gives us a sense of control or aspiration, whether it's the outrageousness of Lady Gaga, her freedom, money, power, or the skill and strength of a sports star. We connect because they represent qualities that help us navigate a complex world.
And this raises the question, beyond heroes, how else do we gain security in a worryingly extensive real world? especially after childhood magic fades. Consider the accumulation of details. Nearly all young people, around age 7, start a hobby or collection. Stamps, cards, dinosaur facts. Peaks around 11, often fades by 15. This powerful, spontaneous intellectual engagement is a human response to the vastness of reality. Gaining exhaustive intellectual control over a specific, manageable yet exhaustible part of knowledge provides immense security. Mastery over a small corner. We can draw on this in teaching. Identify such explorable areas within any topic, let students delve deeply, feel that intellectual conquest.
And then there's that profound statement about human knowledge, the idea that there is no knowledge in the library or on the internet, which sounds wrong at first glance.
It's a provocation, yeah. What libraries and the internet actually contain are only codes, symbols, data, information. We reconstruct these codes into knowledge within our own brains. The principle is, all knowledge is fundamentally human knowledge, derived from human hopes, fears, and passions. If we want people to truly understand knowledge, reconstruct it, not just memorize facts, they need to see it in the context of the human hopes, fears, passions that generated it, or give it meaning today. This connection to human emotional experience is vital. In language learning, math, history, art, everywhere. It transforms dry info into something alive, relevant, understandable. Taps into that emotional core.
That connection between knowledge and our deepest hopes, our fears, it's so powerful. It really makes me think about our personal dreams and goals. Phrases like, one day I want to, or I wish I could. These are core to who we are, right? Driving our aspirations. Our next source on the neuroscience of goals and behavior change helps us understand how we pursue these big dreams at a fundamental brain level, gives us a neuroscientific lens.
Right. And connecting this to the bigger picture, this framework helps diagnose what stops us from achieving goals. It distinguishes between lacking a way, the necessary skills, cognitive control, executive function, and lacking a will, the motivation. Understanding this difference is the critical first step in figuring out how to facilitate behavior change, move closer to our aspirations.
Okay, let's talk about the way. First, our executive function, cognitive control. What does neuroscience tell us about how our brains handle the how-to of goals, the practical steps?
Executive function is the brain's sophisticated project manager. Involves attention, working memory, inhibitory control suppressing distractions, complex planning. It's conscious. It feels effortful. Like if you multiply 13 by 17 in your head, you know it's happening because it consumes your attention. This involves complex interactions in our prefrontal and parietal cortices, managing attention, focusing on relevant info, ignoring irrelevant stuff. This system also plays a key role in how open or closed we are to new ideas during goal setting and striving. It's the neural machinery for intentional operation.
So the way is about mental capacity, managing information, especially for new, tough tasks. Sounds like heavy lifting.
Exactly. A defining characteristic of executive function is its specialization in novel tasks. Our prefrontal cortex lets us plan and execute behaviors we've never done before. Learning software, navigating U-City. This capacity sets us apart from most animals, but it's not unlimited and it takes mental effort. A crucial second function is learning to automate these novel behaviors, turn them into routines so they don't demand precious, conscious attention anymore. This seamless process is habit formation, the brain's way of becoming more efficient, freeing up resources for new problems.
Habit formation. So important for anything we want to get good at. Playing music, speaking a language fluently. So once the behavior goes into autopilot, what does that look like in the brain?
As a behavior in a specific context is repeatedly performed and crucially rewarded, leads to a desirable outcome, the neural systems controlling a shift. Control moves from areas linked to conscious attention, like the dorsomedial striatum, to areas more directly connected to sensory and motor cortices, like the ventral and dorsolateral striatum. This offloading of effortful mental activities is evolutionarily important for efficiency, frees up cognitive resources. Habit learning is greatly helped when the behavior is consistently preceded by specific cues and followed by a clear reward. This procedure is really useful if the behavior will happen repeatedly in similar contexts. It makes it a powerful route to behavior change for big dreams, transforms effortful actions into almost effortless ones.
So if something feels hard learning a new skill, starting a big life change, it's not just because it's new, it's because it requires this demanding executive function. It takes energy, feels effortful.
Yes, that sense of effort directly reflects an opportunity cost. It's an internal signal. Working on this difficult task means forgoing other opportunities or easier rewards right now. The more important or appealing those alternatives are, the harder the main task will feel. Conversely, a task feels relatively easy when it's more important to you than the alternatives. The perceived value outweighs the effort. This is where consultants often help clients reflect on priorities, understand why some goals feel harder. Importantly, neuroscience suggests executive function itself can't be broadly improved by general interventions, like brain games. But specific skill sets relevant to a goal can improve with consistent targeted practice. They can become habitual over time. Consistent focused effort is key.
And now let's shift to the will, our motivation, the engine behind our hopes and future plans. Beyond the how-to, how does the brain drive this desire to achieve, especially when things get tough?
The ventromedial prefrontal cortex, or VMPFC, plays a crucial role here. Self-determination theory suggests that autonomously choosing to engage in a behavior, being intrinsically motivated, doing it because we want to, feel control significantly increases performance and persistence. At the neural level, autonomy actually prevents a reduction in reward system activity in the VMPFC, even when facing negative feedback. So when we feel in control, our motivation is more resilient. Interestingly, the VMPFC is also highly active in studies of self-processing and especially self-affirmation. Like when we consider our core personal values. Brain activation related to self-affirmation during health messaging, for instance, has even predicted subsequent health behavior change months later. A meta-analysis found the VMPFC was the single largest region consistently associated with both identity, self, and value, reward. Highlights its central role integrating who we are with what we find rewarding.
So our sense of self and what we deeply value are profoundly linked in the brain, right there in the VMPFC. Sounds like our core identity plays a massive, maybe foundational role in what truly motivates us.
Precisely. The VMPFC acts as a credible hub, integrating the motivational value of various options. Effortful actions versus easier, more hedonic ones. It interacts with cognitive networks, including executive function ones. Its activation reflects a dynamic value integration process that biases behavior toward higher valued actions. For example, in studies, health reminders increase healthy food choices, and VMPFC activity correlated with the healthiness rating predicting the choice. Conversely, when unhealthy foods were chosen, VMPFC activity correlated with tastiness ratings. It's constantly weighing desires and priorities.
This is really fascinating, almost like a framing effect for motivation. Suggests how we perceive or frame a goal can fundamentally change its appeal and value to our brain, influences whether we pursue it.
Indeed. It's a powerful insight. Merely highlighting certain attributes, health benefits, long-term rewards, alignment with values, can dramatically alter the value placed on it by the VMPFC. Our attentional bandwidth is narrow. We can't focus on everything at once. As attention is intentionally allocated to a choice option, motivation to act on it increases. This suggests a promising route to increase motivation for goals is to actively identify the value inputs, why it is or isn't valued, and learn conscious ways to modulate them. Essentially, strategically framing the goal to make it more appealing to our brain by focusing on aspects aligned with our deepest values, aspirations, sense of self, making the will stronger.
That's incredible. Understanding how our brains value and pursue goals really ties into our biggest dreams, which brings us directly to the most imaginative part today. If I had a superpower. Our final source is this fascinating collection from a Reddit thread, people brainstorming superpowers for a world where everyone has them. It truly highlights how creative, uninhibited, and insightful our imagination can be when given free rein.
Yeah, what's fascinating is the sheer diversity. From incredibly practical to utterly bizarre, even some with negative twists or philosophical implications. This isn't just idle wishful thinking. It's a powerful exercise in creative problem solving, exploring the limits of reality. Ties directly back to cognitive tools, how the literacy toolkit engages with extremes of reality, shows how our minds naturally gravitate towards the strange, wonderful novel when freed from constraints. A core part of our cognitive makeup.
Let's hear some. What are some of the most interesting or surprising ones you found? Ones that really showcase that depth of imagination?
One that stands out is the power of finding. This person can find anything, lost keys, missing person, specific info, even a cure for a disease. But a fascinating, maybe chilling twist suggested is the immense mental burden, knowing everything all the time. A constant, overwhelming torrent of information that could potentially induce profound anxiety, even insanity. A brilliant example of a seemingly benign power with an unexpected cost.
Oh, that's a clever twist. Makes you really think about the practical and psychological implications. What else pushed boundaries?
How about telekinetic thread? Not standard telekinesis. This power materializes as fine threads, tendrils, tentacles. As abilities improve, they can become more substantial, even transform into shapes like extra limbs or weapons. Then there are movement techniques, like super speed reimagined, short range, more dashing or blinking. Might be limited by environment, moving only through shade, requiring water, jumping between trees, adds a strategic layer. Not just a blanket power, has rules.
I like how specific these get. Beyond generic flight or strength, how about some that are a bit more out there or humorous?
For pure quirkiness, consider goose. You can exert your will over any goose, command a massive army of feathery honking armored geese. Imagine the chaos, or the unexpected advantage, or the incredibly specific Jerry, telepathy and mind reading, but only for anyone named Jerry, called Jerry, or considers their name Jerry. Wonderfully narrow and absurdly amusing. What secrets would the Jerrys hold?
Fox.
The Jerry one is hilarious. So specific. What about powers with surprising implications, or deeper thought about reality?
There's reality manipulation. A character believes things work a certain way, so they do, at least for him. The catch, he has to genuinely believe it, not a conscious on-off switch. So if he realized his foam NRF balls shouldn't detonate like grenades, they wouldn't. But how do you convince someone that something they routinely see and do shouldn't be possible? Raises questions about perception, belief, the nature of reality itself. A simple power becomes a philosophical quandary.
Wow, that's profound. How beliefs shape perceived reality. Any power is incredibly useful in everyday life, not just dramatic stuff. Absolutely. One user described soft telepath, Rosetta Stone. Not mind reading, but understanding anything someone says and means, regardless of language, even if you don't know the language. Could also convey ideas back without speaking their language. A universal translator in your mind, a side effect. Maybe impossible for people to lie to you effectively. Transforms communication, trust, brilliant power-enhancing connection, or extra-dimensional storage. Instantly transport non-living matter to a pocket dimension by touch, retrieve at will. Obvious uses, theft, trafficking. But creative uses are limitless. Store compressed air for bursts of force, store walls for access, remove garbage instantly. Advanced users might even access the informational content, gain knowledge from stored books. A walking library.
That's amazing. That storage idea, especially the advanced use, ties to a knowledge superpower, like photographic memory plus context. Not just physical storage, but the information within it.
For something truly wild and escalating, how about purple? Everything you touch turns purple for an hour. During that hour, anything touching the purple object turns blue for a minute. During that minute, anything touching blue turns pink for a second. And during that second, anything touching pink sets on fire. A precise, cascading chain reaction. Extreme caution required.
Intense escalation. You'd have to be so careful. Or yeet, we're screaming yeetus or yee makes you 5x dumber, but 10x better at whatever you're doing. Athletics, strength increases, darts, coordination amazing, even math tests. Intelligence increases, though only 2x better because of the 5x dumber effect. Hilarious paradox.
It really shows the incredible range of human thought when freed. Another detailed concept, absolute programming. Input commands onto objects. Reshape them at will. Create a teddy bear with wings that seems alive. Flies. Manifest Harry Potter dreams. Create a giant identical chessboard. Flaws. Limited freedom based on object properties. It can't command the impossible unless you reshape it, like adding wings. And commands modeling need incredible thoroughness, precision. Connects right back to executive function, planning, even in imagination. Complex goals need detailed blueprints, the way to execute.
So whether it's dreaming of controlling geese, understanding every language, or manifesting objects from thought, these superpowers are extensions of our deep human desire to achieve big things, fulfill aspirations. Highlights how imagination isn't just whimsical, it's the vital starting point for one day I want to, and I wish I could. By actively engaging imagination, we visualize possibilities, which, as neuroscience shows, is a crucial first step in setting and valuing real-world goals and dreams, finding both the will and the way. That's it for today's episode. Thanks for dreaming and chatting with us.
We hope you had fun. Remember to practice these phrases with your own dreams. If you enjoyed this lesson, like, subscribe, and share. Keep speaking English and keep dreaming big. Bye.